Hi everyone, this video is about the Lover's card. It is the next one in the sequence of the Major Arcana, and my first impressions years ago of this card was in the James Bond film Live and Let Die, and we can see Jane Seymour here being the tarot reader. She reads for Roger Moore, and in a later scene he gets her to pick a card and she picks the Lovers, but we find that he's in fact loaded the deck with each card being the Lover's card. I thought that was a fantastic thing to do, because I think I would do the same working with such a beautiful actress as Jane Seymour. If only the Lover's card was that simple though, but it isn't. It's actually quite a complex card. Crowley says, along with the Art card, it's the most complex card in the deck, and that will be reflected in the amount of symbolism that we will be talking about in this video. Before we go on to the divinity meanings of the Lover's card, we'll just talk a little bit about the transition between the previous card, the Hierophant, and the Lover's card. So we have a transition here between the Hierophant and the Lovers. The Lovers is the first of the major arcana sequence, which has more than one central figure. Because if you think about it, we started with the Fool, which progressed onto the Magus, the Priestess. From the Priestess, we had the Empress, then the Emperor. Card 5 is the Hierophant, and now we have the Lovers, which is under the rulership of Gemini, the twins. So we have this division in the Lovers. With the Hierophant, we had the association with the vow, which is a nail, and a nail is something which binds things together. So the Hierophant binds people in terms of their religion, their dogmas. It's to do with institutions, structures, ways of structured ways of life, structured ways of culture. With the Lovers, it introduces this concept of choice, because you've got the twins, you've got the sword which separates things, and this card is very much linked with alchemy in the Thoth deck. And the Lovers can be interpreted in many different ways, on many different levels, as we'll see within the video. So we'll go on to the divinity meanings, and for those that want to progress further into the video, we'll look at where those meanings are derived from, and where the symbolism relates to that meaning. So having said that this card has several layers of meaning, well, what are those layers? Just to give you an example, it could be between two people, in a relationship setting, such as I mentioned, between Roger Moore and Jane Seymour at the beginning of the video. It's also balance of opposites within the self, that inner marriage of opposites, and working on those parts of you to give a greater whole. And it's also the connection between the self and God, or soul unification with the divine. So the separation produced by the sword or the mind makes us have a greater understanding of the parts, such as the qualities in the various different auric bodies, such as the emotional, mental, higher mental, intuitive, and so on, so that they're aligned to our spiritual purpose. And I think, as I indicated, we let go of that which does not serve our highest aspirations. And the Lover's card is also to do with brotherhood or sisterhood, uniting people under a common purpose. You may think that's similar to the Hierophant, which unites people. I think the difference here with the Lovers is that that process has been more thought about. So it's not like when you see people of perhaps the same family following the same religion without questioning. The lovers is more taking responsibility, really looking at yourself and finding really what feels right and that you're aligned with. So it's a more evolved decision-making process than just the following of a dogma, because everyone that you know and have been brought up with does the same thing. So hopefully that clears that up. So we'll go on to the divinatory meanings now that we've put things into a bit of a context. Okay, so for the upright lovers, the first thing I've got down is the principle that the lovers is essentially about choice, which we spoke about. The choice about who you want to be in this lifetime and how you connect with others and on what level. To make good choices, you need to be clear about your personal beliefs, your personal values, and stay true to them. So not all decisions are going to be easy, and the Lovers card can be quite a difficult card. It does sort of entice you in with the feeling, oh, the Lovers, I'm loved up, but with this separation can be also a lot of pain and loneliness. So the Lover's card can be a sign that you're facing a moral dilemma and must consider all consequences before acting. Your value system is being challenged and you're being asked to take the higher path even if it is more challenging. So when I spoke of the difference between the Hierophant and just being robotically going along with dogma, this is a more challenging card whereby you need to be more evolved and more brave at looking within to see just what is actually there. It can also just signify a beautiful soul connection relationship. The fact that you believe you found your soulmate or life partner. Following on from that, before embarking on a relationship, make sure that this person is the right choice for you, and it'll be with someone who will improve your life for the better. So it's combining with someone not just in a physical aspect, but someone who's going to support those other more subtle aspects of yourself. It's also reminding us to look inward as well, and be advised that self-love, self-worth, self-respect is a major key to a lasting relationship. Following on from the brotherhood and sisterhood thing, you may benefit from spending time with like-minded people who share your values and goals, such as a spiritual group, meditation group, or whoever. Once you have had a little look inside and see where you need that support, where perhaps you feel the loneliness of separation. It can also mean a longing for the union between your soul and its spiritual source. So you see how the Lover's card is on so many different levels. And this could be a time when you're actually on your own, and it's a time, if you are looking for a partner, you're looking for someone to share your life with, it's also a time to work on yourself, to be the best you can be. And then you will attract and support those people that reflect and support you. I know in the worst times of my life, I've, engaged in behaviours that have been way, way away from the best that I can be. And the sort of people that I attracted reflected that, going through the same thing. It's not to put anyone down whatsoever. It's just, I take responsibility for that. But it's, again, this quality of just reflecting inward to make sure that you have enough self-integrity. Moving on to the Lovers in the reverse position, it could mean that the depth of feelings shared in a relationship aren't mutual. It doesn't imply that a relationship needs to end, but that maybe you should concentrate on restoring balance to the situation if possible, talking things through. Otherwise, you may realise that you have simply grown apart and it is time to move on. Reversed, the lovers can represent a time when you're out of sync with those around you, particularly your loved ones, and this can relate to close friends and family, not just relationship partners. So you may find that your relationships are strained and communication is challenging. Reversed, it can also mean not having enough self-love and self-respect, or feeling as if you don't have people in your life which share your common values, or values that are common to you. Reversed, you feel imbalanced within yourself and have lost sight of who you are and how to be at your best. So yes, the Lovers is about choice. So it may be that you got, again, going through this a difficult time and things just seem extremely foggy, and that your relationships just are not seeming to support you at this present time. And obviously within such a reading, you would give that client the means with which to empower themselves and move out of that difficult circumstance. Reverse, the longing for a soulmate in your life and feeling lonely on your own. Feeling cut off from your spiritual source due to perhaps internal conflicts. So you see, the Lovers is quite a complex card, and it does represent this division and longing to reunite on many different levels. So we'll have a look at the more philosophical aspects of the card, and then in the final part of the video we'll look at the application of the Lovers to the Celtic cross. Here's a quick comparison to the Lovers in the Rider-Waite deck. The Thoth Lovers card contains much more symbolism than the Waite, with a heavy emphasis on alchemy, which was first introduced in the Magus card. And as I said, it's the first card to have more than one figure in it, representing this separation. And it's a glyph of duality in essence. Can only really be understood in context to 14, which is art, or which would be temperance in the Waite deck. In the Waite card here, it shows a naked man and woman sitting or standing here beneath the angel Raphael, which offers a blessing, that union between man, woman and spirit. And they have a backdrop of a fertile sort of landscape reminiscent supposedly of the Garden of Eden. And behind the woman here sits a small apple tree with a snake winding its way up the trunk. So the serpent and apple tree represent the temptation of sensual pleasures that takes one's focus away from the spiritual path. And behind the man here is a tree of flames, which represent his fiery passion. And that's symbolic of the Ace of Wands. And there is this mountaintop here which does seem to indicate some type of separation between the two. So from now on we'll concentrate on this Thoth card here and go through the various aspects of it. And first of all we'll look at its relationship to the Tree of Life and see how that feeds into the meaning of the card. The Lovers is related to the path of the disposing intelligence on the Tree of Life, which is path number 17, which occurs between B.O.T.A and Tiperet here. So moving down this tree, Tiperet is related to Christ consciousness, and B.O.T.A is where the beginnings of form or the beginnings of separation in the universe begin to take place. So the Lovers takes that step further by connecting that separation with Tiperet, which is Christ consciousness. And this process here involves the separating out of those aspects of ourselves which don't reflect our spiritual path. Because Tipurath here, being Christ consciousness, is like the highest expression that we can have in a physical body. It's that it's like the third eye point where spiritual light can be accessed, and you can see that in the Hinduism of the red spot there. So the Lover's card is about making sensible choices that will align to our highest good, our highest spiritual purpose. Just breaking down this phrase here, says the 17th path is the disposing intelligence which provides the faith to the righteous, and they are clothed with the Holy Spirit. Probably similar, as I say, to the Waite here, where you've got the angel of Raphael there. And it is called the foundation of excellence in the state of higher things. So it's that foundation of the Christ consciousness within man. So disposing intelligence, that means it's inclined, spirit is inclined to give faith to the righteous. That means just supporting those who follow or are aligned to a spiritual purpose. Righteousness here is finding union with God despite the temptations of creation. Clothed with the Holy Spirit. There, I think I went through that with the Rider-Waite card there. So Spirit will guide them, protect them, and imbibe them with the higher knowledge and wisdom of the spiritual planes of consciousness. So that's like the interpretation of the position of the lovers on the Tree of Life. And one last thing I forgot with this is that Tipurath means victory. So that is significant in that this process of looking at ourselves, of being able to see what we need to change to align for our spiritual good, will lead to victory and Christ consciousness, or the opening of that channel of spiritual consciousness within us. At the bottom of the card we've got its Hebrew and astrological associations, and clearly Gemini, being the twins, represents that dual aspect, that decision making that the sword creates through separation. Gemini is a mutable air sign, so air is to do with the mind, and the Lovers is all about making choices. So the two connect. With the Hebrew association here, Zion, various ways of actually spelling that, but it means a sword, and that division which the blade makes, it has two edges and cuts through things. Therefore we have like a duality which is set up in order for man to learn more about himself before he merges back with the infinite. And the last thing to note at this point is, ironically, Gemini, the twins, is also represented by the twins that return in this card that were first seen in the Fool, and we'll talk a lot more about them later in the video. So now it's time to have a look at all the symbolism that's within this card. So we'll break it down step by step. So I said at the beginning that the Lovers can only really be appreciated in relation to the art card, and this is in a nutshell, the alchemical processes that occur in each. So we've got this process of separating, or solve, which the sword does, it divides. And in the art card you can see here in this melting pot that various different parts are put back together to create a new whole, and that's coagula, which is combining. So it's two very distinct processes, and it's all to do with the purification of the soul in its spiritual context. So the central figure in the Crowley deck is this hermit-like figure, which Crowley says is the form of the hermit, and he's officiating a marriage between the White Queen here and the Black King. In the Rider-Waite deck we have the angel Raphael initiating union between the naked man and woman. So here we have in the Lovers a form of the hermit. The hermit is associated with the astrological sign of Virgo, which is the fertile wheat, which we see in the background here. And also you have the spermatozoon here, representing fertility. And it's connected with the word Hod, and that is the creative power of the universe, and we saw that in the Ace of Wands with the phallic-like staff, which appeared in the as the central figure of the card. So we have like the creative spark of the universe giving union to the separate parts of creation, and this ultimately is completed in the art card. So we'll take a closer look just at this hand gesture that he's making here, and his gesture is called the sign of the Enterer. This is the hermit's scroll, containing the intelligence of the Logos or spiritual realms. The sign of the Enterer is to do with Thelema, which is the philosophy which underpins Crowley's deck. And it says the sign of the Enterer is performed by taking a step forward with the left foot and then leaning the body forward whilst thrusting out with both hands, fingers outstretched, as we've got here, as if reaching for something. Crowley says that this is also a sign of benediction, which means benediction is a blessing at the end of a religious ceremony, and also a sign of consecration, that's to dedicate something to a higher purpose. So when we look and have talked about the meaning of the Lovers on various different levels, it can be, as I say, a physical relationship, or it can be like a spiritual union. The Hermit is also cloaked, and that's to signify that the mysteries of life are hidden and are beyond the visible eye and the intellect. And this sort of principle is similar to what we see in the High Priestess of the Rider-Waite Tarot. In the Waite deck, she has this scroll which is partially hidden, and we have the Veil of Pomegranates here, which is like the veil between what we see in the world and the mysteries of the hidden which lie behind it. So the symbolism is all there in the Waite deck. You just have to sort of look for it more. Above the Hermit's head is this white light here, which is the white light of Keter, which is the purity of spirit. Next up is this figure above his head, which is Cupid or Eros. Eros is the Roman name for the Greek Cupid, so they are one and the same. And here is a high detailed diagram of him. He's blindfolded, so that's the unconscious desire of the soul to unite opposites. It's that latent desire which is within that we need to align to. He has his arrow here, which is the directed will of Thelema, that's the will of love. Indeed, Eros here is the Greek for love. On his quiver here is written, you can just about read it there, the words thelema. And the arrows are said to be quanta of will, or little energy packets of will. So the law of thelema is the law of love under will. And in context, what this is saying is that it's only through the inner direction of love and using the will to go beyond the opposites of creation that we will find union with the whole. So I think it was love is the law under will. So it's it's rather like the soul wanting to be at one with the Father, and that's why sometimes you have the pain of separation that can be part of the Lover's card. So this arrow itself, as well as being the will, carries with it the spiritual intelligence, which is in the form of love. And for those that meditate or practice their spirituality, you will hopefully have found and had some experience of that love which is within, which is very different from the love that you find in a relationship. And again we see where the art card fits in again, because the art card is also ruled by Sagittarius, the arrow, and you have the arrow on the figure's breastplate here. And in context here it is very small, but it's going up there and it's giving rise to all of these colours on the figures on the breastplate. So it's that directed will which eventually leads to union, and obviously these colours around the head region indicate the intelligence that the person who has travelled to this particular position on their spiritual path it's the wisdom and insight that they've gained from that union of opposites. At the very top of the card we have two female figures. On the right hand side we have the younger Eve representing life, and on the left, which looks like an older woman, we have Lilith representing death. And they're standing supposedly on the pillars of Binah, Binah being the third Sephiroth here, and which I said is where the beginnings of the formed universe takes place, and therefore you have the beginnings of life and death within that process. So they're representing the duality of creation, and here we have a sword archway. Let's say that archway extending on both sides, and you have the white light of Keter here. We also have these yellow hues, these yellow type of colours, and they represent the Sephiroth here, Tiphereth. So it's a heads up to that position on the Tree of Life, going into cosmic consciousness here. This slide looks at the symbolism of the king and queen in more detail. Now the king wears the crown of the emperor, and the queen wears the crown of the empress. Those are two cards we've already looked at. So this is a silver crown representing the moon, the feminine, and we have the 5-pointed crown that the king wears, and the number 5 is related to the 5th Sephiroth, Geberah. We have the Auburn cross here. The cross obviously is a four-pointed figure representing Hesed. So we have the gold crown, silver crown, feminine, masculine, and then we have Gibora and Hesed. So they're representing the balance of opposites. On the Tree of Life, Gibora is here and Hesed is opposite. And we'll look at more detail on that path when we come to the Lust card. The King represents the red tincture that I talked about in the Emperor card, and the Queen, the white tincture. These relate back to alchemy, with the Emperor being associated with red tincture and sulfur, the Empress and the Queen related to salt and the white tincture. We have the catalyst here, Mercury, and in this particular card we have the directed will of the Logos, which is like the catalyst. The King is holding the phallic-like lance, and the Queen here holds the Holy Grail. So we have the male lance and the receptive grail of the female. There are 5 rays emanating from the Grail, indicating the 5th element of spirit. Because you have the 4 elements: fire, water, air and earth, and the 5th one, spirit. And there's a dove on the Grail, symbolising that love is the thing that binds. There are bees of fertility on the dress of the White Queen, and we have the lemniscate, the horizontal infinity sign on the King. Here the White Child is crossing over the card to hold the Holy Grail, and the Black Twin holds the lance. In the symbolism of the card that is contained in the Book of Thoth, Crowley talks about these being representative of Cain and Abel. Where the red and sort of yellowy robes overlap, you have an orange colour here indicating the union of the two. Although, to be fair, that's quite hard to see. Taking a closer look at the foreground of the card now, with the lion and the eagle. The lion has 5 kinks to its tail. The tail's also like an upright phallus, and that number 5 relates to Gibora on the Tree of Life that I spoke about, and the eagle here has 4 tail feathers representing the 4th Sephiroth Hesed. The eagle is obviously a water sign, and the fire sign we have represented by the lion. Going back to the art card here, we have fire and water mixed into the melting pot, so it's that union of opposites. And we've got the twins. Now with the twins, one of them is holding 5 white roses, again representing Hesed, and the club that the other twin holds is the representation of the warrior-like qualities of Mars, which rules the 5th Sephiroth, Gibora. So there are 4 Sephiroth or Sephira that are represented in this video, which are Binah, Tipperet, Gibora and Hesed. Again, there's biblical symbology in here, as this club here is representative of Cain there, who slays Abel. And these twins are the version of the twins that you see underneath the Fool in the very first video that I talked about. And these are underneath the Fool's legs. And we have a passive twin, Hierophant, and an active twin, Waite, which are two forms of the god Horus. All of these things representing the duality of creation and implying the need to make choices and decisions, relating back to the meaning of the Lover's card. The twins themselves are standing on the winged Orphic egg here. Here are the wings. This is the egg. Now the egg is said to be grey speckled with white and black, which is a little bit difficult to tell with this particular colouring on the card. And it's representing the colours black and white of the supernal triangle. The supernal triangle being Keter, Binah and Hokmar. So you've got white and black giving grey. And this represents the fact that the Orphic egg of creation is holding in this intelligence of the universe, which is what they're standing on. And this whole thing, the winged serpent, is a form of Hadit, the god of wisdom in Thelema, which is like Keter on the Tree of Life. So this egg opens up the potential of the universe and its manifestations. And you can see this white halo extending round the twins, so that intelligence of creation is going into duality. And you can see the halo, spiritual light around the twins extending from the Orphic egg, which can be seen in high detail here. So I mentioned Hadit, the winged egg, and this was on the Stele of Revealing, which I have talked about, and the Eon card contains a lot of detail on this, but you've got Nuit here, goddess of the sky. You've got Awas, Crowley's holy guardian angel, and dictating the book of the law to Crowley himself. As I say, I've gone in detail with this particular aspect of Thelema in the Eon card. So essentially this egg is opening out the potential of the universe, and man's journey back to God or enlightenment is putting these parts back together and seeing the unity behind creation, and therefore the individual's life is forever changed. Perhaps the very last thing to talk about is a concealed bow here. So it's again very difficult to see unless you really look at the fine detail. And if we take the whole card into account, this sacred lance is the arrow of the bow. And it's that bow of Sagittarius, the art card which rules Sagittarius, which links this card in with the art card, and we'll conclude this process when we get to Atu 14, which is the art. Okay, so that's it for the symbolism, and we'll now go on to the last part of the video, which is back to how to apply this information in a Celtic cross spread. In the last section of the video, we will look at the application of the Lover's card to the Celtic cross. So for the first position here, heart of the situation, it could mean that you have a decision to make about a relationship or potential relationship, and you need direction on the best way to proceed, remembering that the Lovers is about choices. Position number 2, crossing, current challenge affecting your issue. You feel as if you have internal conflict over a situation. It may be a relationship, it may be a family situation as well, because the Lovers also relates to family bonds, and are stuck at a crossroads. Position number 3, subconscious influences. It could mean a lack of self-love or self-worth that can hold you back from attracting the right relationships in your life. Subconscious influences are often those things that we don't, sometimes we're not aware of, and they can be those things that have not been worked on within our personality. Position number 4, recent past. I've added a reversal in here. So if we have the Lovers reversed, it could mean the breakup of a relationship with somebody close to you. The Lovers upright, position number 5, hopes and goals. To meet your soulmate, someone that you connect with spiritually as well as physically and emotionally. So, you know, it's a deep bond there that is calling. Position number 6, our near future. It could mean working on ourselves, that process of self-analysis, self-love, discarding that which doesn't serve our long-term happiness and balance. Because as I mentioned throughout the video, this is to do with looking at and improving aspects of ourselves. Card number 7, our self-image, how we see ourselves. It could just mean that we like to have close family and loved ones around us. And that would be helpful in the situation at hand in that particular spread. Position number 8, our external environment. Could mean being a part of a group of like-minded people that support your journey, and I explained how that differs from the Hierophant. Or, for instance, the support of a partner would be very helpful in context to the spread at hand. Position number 9, guidance, warning, advice. So the Lovers here can indicate to make good choices you need to be clear about your own values and beliefs. Make sure you have worked on any internal conflicts or imbalances before making major life decisions, such as committing to marriage or living with someone. So it implies a lot more reflection before making such a big step. And finally, the Lovers in position number 10, overall outcome. If we've worked on ourselves and live life as virtuous and honest as we can, we're much more liable to attract the love of others that support us on our journey, and we feel more connected to our spiritual source. So hopefully this video has helped, and we move on to the Chariot in the next of the Major Arcana sequence.